after some trial and tribulation. I might have to get some smaller yarn. It was like my brain was a dry erase board and somebody just came across and cleared it off. Can I achieve it? I don't know that yet. Hey friends, good morning and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Chris. I'm the maker behind the Enchanted Skein, and I'm currently making videos about trying to get my small crochet business up and running. So if that's something that you're interested in, I hope you'll consider subscribing. If you didn't watch last week's video, we finally got the Etsy store up and running after some trial and tribulation. But that was a huge relief. So that got done. Yesterday, I ended up doing some cleanup of kind of my lists and database and everything. There were some things I was going to list, I didn't list, some things I need to list. So just kind of getting a little reorganized. I also realized I made some errors in some of the listings. Like I listed that I had a gray large loaf cat when it's a medium loaf cat, you know, just little things like that. So I fixed all of that. And then I ended up working on a few different little crochet items that I've been itching to do and just try out these patterns. So let me show you what I ended up making yesterday. First up is this rubber ducky pattern. And this worked up really quick. I think it's something that I could do pretty quickly once I get the hang of it. You know, anytime you do a pattern the first time, it's always a little slower, but it's adorable. There's some things that I don't love about it. I feel like his head is a little large for the body, but maybe that's how a rubber duck is. I don't know. I didn't look at a reference picture, but and then the other thing is, because of his head being as giant as it is, he doesn't really sit well. He just wants to topple over. So I think if I was to make this again, I might weight his body a little bit and or maybe make the head smaller. So I might try this again and make the head smaller and just see how it comes out. But also, you know, consider weighing his little self. So the other thing I did is I wanted to try that axolotl pattern in a slightly larger yarn. Last week I made this one in the velvet yarn, so I decided to do some Premier Parfait Chunky and make this little guy in that, which I like the teeny tiny size better for reference, but this is a good size too. So, you know, I just wanted to see what it came out like. I might make one in blanket yarn and see how big that one comes out too, just to see. And then last but not least, which I'm late to this party, but I wanted to make one of these little poppable mushroom guys. I definitely want to have more mushroom stuff in my aesthetic. It's just kind of part of that whole forest fantasy kind of vibe. So I wanted to try him. I want to try Mushy Boy and some other things. So so that was fun. I had a really good time just crocheting. So that was awesome. It's Monday morning. This morning I don't have much time. I have about 15 minutes before I have to log into work. The reason for that is I've got to log in an hour early today because I'm going to be missing some time for an appointment that I have later today. So I'm going to be stepping away from work for that appointment, and I'm just going to make up that extra hour this morning. So not a lot of time this morning. As far as what I'm going to be doing this morning and kind of my thoughts for the week, I really want to do a market. That was always the goal. That was always kind of the plan. The Etsy shop was kind of a get it up and running and it'll be there, and that's great, but I don't have a huge high expectation of getting a lot of sales or anything like that. I'm very new to all of this. It was just more of a milestone for me to kind of, you know, get it out there. I've just started the social media stuff, so it's not something that I anticipate having to manage a lot. Obviously, things that I've made, I want to get up on there, so they're there. It only costs 20 cents to list it for 4 months. May as well put it up. But markets are where I'm more than likely going to make more sales, you know, in person. And I've got to think it through because I have a few different challenges. So it's April, the hotter months are coming. I live in South Florida. Summer markets are probably not where it's at. I also don't know how quickly I can prepare stock for a market. I've never tried to mass produce anything. So I'm just going to think through some of that, kind of maybe make a list of things that I need to address and go over. There's things I'll have to purchase, So I think we're going to start the week off with market prep in mind. And I'm just going to kind of make a list of those things this morning with the few minutes that I do have because they're in my brain and they just need to come out. So I'm going to get those out and then I will circle back with you after work and let you know what I came up with. Good morning. It is actually the next day because I forgot again that hubby had his class. And kind of just left the office right after I was finished work. But honestly, I didn't have a ton of stuff to update you on anyway, because I only had that 15 minutes in the morning and I didn't have any time for lunch or anything because I was at my appointment. So nothing really happened. But last night I did get some stuff done. So I want to go over the list of things that I think I need to do to kind of prepare for the whole market mindset. But we'll do that in a few minutes because that leads into what we're doing today. So I want to show you what I did make last night. So last night when I first left the office, I didn't have access to grab my yarn or anything. So I just had what was in the living room, which was the same materials from the night before. So I made another mushy boy, a mush pop. And then once hubby was done with his meeting and we were done with dinner and everything, I went back into the office and grabbed some of my yarn. And I wanted to try out this pattern that I had for an owl. He still needs arms and feet or wings and feet. But I did do this one. It worked up okay. It's not my favorite pattern, but and when it comes to his eyes, I didn't paint these. I just used the little glitter disc that came with them on something so small. And if it's something that I can't really sell for, good price, then I'm kind of like, I don't bother with painting the eyes. But yeah, so made this little guy. I'm going to finish him up a little later today, but got that done. And then I went through and made my kind of my starter list. And before I jump into that, also, I just want to say I'm so excited because this morning I got notifications that I got comments on my first video and it's not from family and friends. So I'm super excited. So Ash and Barbara, if you're watching, thank you so much for being the first people to comment on my videos. Thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. But yeah, with that, let's jump into the list of market stuff and what I have planned for today. So I'm going to peek down at my iPad so that I can just get through this. But basically, the first thing I need to decide, obviously, is which market I'm going to do because everything spawns off of that. Like, when is it and what is it? There's one that I definitely know I want to do, which is in early November. And I know good information about this market because my hubby does this market. He's a teacher and he does it with his high school students as like a fundraiser and stuff. So he's been to it a few times. He knows the ins and outs. So it's definitely a market that I want to attend. My challenge with making that my first one is that at November, I can't really sell spooky stuff. And I want to make Halloweeny, spooky, witchy things, I'm always going to have some of that no matter what market it is, because that's just kind of part of some of my aesthetic. I like some of the dark and mystical and magical stuff. So it's going to be there regardless. But I feel like at a market in early November, I'm more than likely going to want to have like holiday stuff as the focus along with those staple items. So I want to find a market that is in the September, October area. So that's going to be the goal, is trying to identify one in September, October, so that I can have that spooky stuff. The next thing I need to figure out, if I'm working with the mindset of my market is in September, let's say, or October, is what does that inventory look like? Like, I know I want spooky stuff, but what spooky stuff? And how quickly can I make said inventory? Because I've never done this before, so I have no idea how many varieties of things I should have and how many of each thing I should have. And you would think I would have a good idea of this having watched a gajillion market videos of other people, but I also don't necessarily want to sell some of those staple items that everyone else sells. I want to kind of have my own flavor as well, if you will. So I really need to kind of define what I want to have for that first market, including the spooky stuff, and then what things do I want to add to that in between September and November to offer for like holiday stuff. And I'm hoping that'll give me enough time. It's kind of a catch-22 because if the September market does really well and I don't have a ton of inventory, then I'm going to really struggle and have to like bust butt to get inventory ready for November. But that would be an amazing problem to have. So that's kind of the focus. The other thing I need to consider is all of the like market materials. So I don't have a tent. I think we have folding tables. I don't know how many or how big they are. I think I want to say 6 feet, but I need to figure out, tables and display stuff and tablecloths and, if I'm going to have a banner and all that kind of stuff. But I think that is going to be something that I'll kind of compile that list of and then tell myself, like, okay, this month we're buying the tent and this month we're buying that and kind of just build it up through the next few months because I do have a good amount of time between now and September. The biggest issue I'm going to have is where to put all of this stuff because I'm running out of space to just store plushies that I make, let alone all of those things as well. So that I think is going to be my biggest challenge along the way, but we'll handle it as it happens. So, there's only so much I can do about that, but we'll just have to see how that pans out. So the plan for this morning, I have just under an hour, is I am going to start just doing an absolute brain dump of all the things I would love to make for a market that would be in September, October-ish, and see what I can come up with. And then I'm going to have to narrow that down, I'm sure, because it's going to be a really long list. And I think the way I'm going to narrow that down is maybe bucket them into guesstimate pricing so that I think it'll give me a clearer vision because I know that I need less expensive stuff, at a market, but I always love making kind of the bigger things. So I need to kind of, go through all of that. So the plan for this morning is to work on that list, and I'm going to probably put feet and wings on this guy, have some coffee, and then I will check back in with you after work and let you know where we're at. Hey guys, so it's lunchtime, but I just wanted to jump on really quickly because I just got a package from Sticker Mule and I thought we could open it together. I don't know if it's both things I ordered or just one, but find out. Smells like blue. It's the tape. Oh, I love it. So I designed some custom shipping tape. It was really cheap. You can get a coupon online, but it came out pretty good. The skeins are a little dark, but that's okay. Ah, I love it. I'm so excited. I have 0 orders yet, and was it a necessity? No, not at all, but it makes me happy. Hey, just checking in. So it is actually almost 8 o'clock at night. As I was buttoning up from work, I was chatting with hubby and saying how, I wish I would have bought a little more of the velvet yarn when we were at Joann's because I really enjoyed working with it when I was making the capybara and the axolotl. And as I was going through my list of things I wanted to make for market, I was thinking I would like to make a lot of minis in that velvet yarn. So just mentioning it to him, and then he offered to take me over to Joann's. So I jumped on that opportunity and we ran over there. They didn't have any more Bernat velvet, unfortunately, but the yarn was 60% off now. And they did have a couple of skeins of Juicy Couture. So I did end up getting 3 green and 3 red. That was all they had left. Because I definitely know I'm going to be making some Christmas themed stuff down the line. So too good of a deal to pass it up. So I did get that. But I wanted to let you know what I came up with in my research this morning. So I went through, and at first I had a lot of analysis paralysis. I was getting a little overwhelmed at the thought of how many things am I going to make? What are they all going to be, etc. And I decided to kind of back things up and first think about like buckets of things. So not necessarily specific plushies, but like pricing buckets. And I came up with some different buckets of things that I kind of just gave them little code names for myself. That's about as far as I got. Part of me wants to jump in and just start making the mini stuff because I think it would be fun to like see how many items I can make, but I don't, shockingly, I don't have the yarn. I have a ton of blanket yarn, but it's just too big for that kind of thing. So, I might try to make 1 or 2 of the mini patterns in just to see how big they come out, but I want them to be more that size of that capybara and that axolotl. So I might have to get some smaller yarn, but we'll see. I don't know what I'm gonna work on as far as crocheting this evening. I think part of me wants to grab the willow dragon that I started in that kind of variegated color and just work on it because I can just let my brain go on that one because I really want to think through what items will be my actual inventory and come up with that list. And I want to know what they are so that I can start marking them off because I'm somebody who loves a checklist. So I don't think I'm going to have time this evening to figure that list out. So I might just mess with the willow dragon for the evening. Good morning. It is actually Thursday morning. So in that last clip, that was Tuesday evening, I told you that I created these categories and I slept on it. And yesterday morning, I just started having challenges. I sat down to record and it was like my brain was a dry erase board and somebody just came across and cleared it off. So I knew I wasn't happy with the categories I created. I was just feeling a lot of like anxiety and just self-doubt and all of those thoughts creeping in. So I decided to stop and not record and just take the day to think through everything, get my thoughts in order. I'm somebody who I like lists. I like having everything out on paper. I don't like when it's stuck in my head. So I just did a massive brain dump into the iPad, kind of went through everything and I feel much better today. But yesterday was a struggle in general. Like I struggled at work. I struggled when I tried to crochet. As a matter of fact, so the day before I did end up putting the little features on this guy. So he's completely done. Not something I'll probably make a lot of. He's adorable, but he just takes a little longer than it's worth. And then I worked on the willow dragon. So before I had up to about here, I did all of this. And as I mentioned, I struggled because I realized that the last 5 rows are off by 1 stitch. So I need to frog back 5 rows of this. And it's not even something I'm enjoying making. I just don't love how the color's coming out. But anyway, I'm going to probably take this to the point of just finishing the body and then come back to it. Because I really want to focus on this whole market thing. And I don't think this is something that's going to be one of the things I bring necessarily. So, but what I ended up doing yesterday was finalizing, I'm going to say finalizing loosely, the categories and all of the inventory items that I want to make within each of those categories. So I'm going to put that up on the screen and we'll go through that now. All right, I'm going to go through the price bucket, the price range, give you a couple of examples, how many I'm thinking I want to have as far as I count for my staple inventory, and then how many of them I want to have at a specific market that are kind of on theme. So if it's a market where I'm going to sell some Halloween stuff or holiday stuff, for example, how many of those items I want to have. My first bucket is what I'm calling Spellbound. That's stuff that's $50 or over. These are really expensive items that I don't anticipate necessarily selling at a market, but are just there to kind of draw people in. An example would be like my really large dragon or a forest guardian. For that, I want to have 5 at most on hand at a market. I'm probably going to be more in the 2 to 3 range, but I'm setting a goal for myself of 5 to see if I can get there. And then for the particular market theme, I want to have maybe 1 or 2. Next up is Witch's Choice. That's the $30 to $45 range. And an example of that might be the medium-sized dragons or the unicorn. I want to have 15 on hand for my staple inventory and then 5 on theme. Next up is Forest Finds. That's the $18 to $25 range. That's something like a Lovey or a Snuggler or the possum, for example. For that, I want to have 25 on hand, and then I want to have 10 that are on theme. Next up is Pixie Picks. That's the $10 to $15 range, and that would be something like a Chonky Cat or a Toad. And I want to have 35 of those on hand in my stable inventory and 15 on theme. And last but not least, we have charms. That's the $5 to $8 range. That would be things like the mini capybaras and the mushy pops. I want to have 70 of those on my staple inventory on hand and 30 on theme. So that brings us roughly to the 200 item mark. Some of that is going to flex a little bit based on what I can get done. So that is basically my first market, first draft, essentially, inventory list. What I'm going to do now this morning is kind of go back through that and determine if I have everything I need for those and if I want to like just scratch any off depending on what the situation is. So for example, like, do I already have the yarn for it? Do I already have the eyes for it? Do I already have the pattern for it? I have most, I think, patterns. There's a couple that I may not have. I definitely feel much better about where that list is at. Can I achieve it? I don't know that yet, but it's what we're going to shoot for. So yeah, I'm going to work on that for a little bit. I think, you watching me on the computer is probably boring for you. So I'm going to go through that, filter that out, and then I will check back in with you this afternoon. Hey, the workday is done finally. And I just wanted to update you real quick on what I did this morning and at lunch. So this morning I went through and I literally listed out every item that I wanted to make for the inventory to fill up that stuff you just looked at in those buckets. And also all of the kind of spooky themed stuff that I wanted to do because I know the first market I want to have ideally in September, October, and have lots of spooky stuff. So I went through and created that and how many of each. I'm calling it my starting inventory because I'm guessing some of it's going to change. Some of these patterns I have not made yet. So if I think something's going to fall in the $20 bucket and I make it and it takes a lot more effort and forever to sew or whatever, and it becomes a $40 item, then obviously that shifts things around. So, or if I absolutely hate making it, then it's just going to kind of be a one-off. And I'm not going to make multiples of something that I don't enjoy making. So got that done. At lunch, I made that little graphic that you just looked at where I listed everything for you to see the buckets and everything. So that's done. And I frogged the willow dragon back to where I originally messed up, which was totally on me. I missed an increase. So I was off by 1 stitch in the 5 rounds, which brings me to my plan for the evening, which is to just sit and work on the willow dragon. I feel like I've got all of the computer stuff about as good as where it can be. It's out of my brain. And yeah, I just want to have a chill crochet evening. So that's the plan. Good morning. I am feeling pretty good today. Yesterday was pretty good. I had that little downward slump on Wednesday, but giving myself the time to kind of just decompress, I think was a good idea. So yesterday you saw I was working on the willow dragon and I actually finished her body. So she's done as far as the body goes, and I got a foot done. And now that it's worked up fully, I'm not as mad at the variegated changes in the yarn as I was when it was just her head. I think it's going to be okay. So I think I'm going to finish this one. This morning, what I thought we would do is if I can function properly while trying to crochet and talk, then I'm going to work on the other feet for this guy. Girl, whatever she is. And I am going to just share with you some other thoughts that I've been having over the last day or so when it comes to the markets. I just realized that I left the pattern in the other room, so I'm going to grab that real quick and then we'll get started. All right, so I think I found the market that I want to do as my first market. It's September 13th. But when I was looking at the different markets that were out there and thinking through just experiences I've seen other crocheters have, at least the ones that post or are on YouTube, I was a little bit kind of unsure. I already lost count. So I was a little bit concerned because I was watching Katie's video, The Celestial Homebody, and she was talking about how she doesn't necessarily like to do craft shows, ones that are labeled craft show, because she said those, and what she said makes sense. Like the people that go to craft shows are crafters and they're not necessarily going to buy. So she prefers to do things more like festivals, and things like that. And I get that, but in looking in my area, it's like all of the festivals are also craft shows. So, the whole thing is going to be a learning experience. I would love to get my booth fee back. At the very least, if I go to a show, my expenses, a lot of them are an hour away. But I'm not, I'm trying to go into it with the open mind of this is a learning experience because I don't know what I'm doing. And until I see like, which shows are better or worse, I think it's just going to kind of be a crapshoot. But this one I really do want to go to. They have, it's an indoor market. It seems really large. The booth fee is really high. It's like $200, I think. But it seems like it's really big and it's inside of a convention center. So I thought that was pretty cool. That might mean slightly smaller space. I think it still said 10 by 10, but I started looking through everything for that one and the one that I want to do in November. And that's when I kind of was like, ooh, I got to think some things through. That does not exist yet for me. So, and it's kind of a catch-22 because I have to pick up the stuff to do that. So, I have a table, but I need tablecloths and all that kind of stuff. That's one thing. The other thing is like, I need enough inventory to put on the table so that it looks full. I know that it doesn't have to be the exact inventory I'm bringing to said show, but it can't look like it was just like 3 things on a table because they're going to be like, what are you selling here? So, I have to figure out the timing for that. I'm going to email the September show and ask when their application deadline is because I don't know what it is. I think the other one gives a deadline, but I want to say the September one didn't have a deadline. So I'm kind of like, what do I do? Increase 2 singles. So it's like I need to start getting supplies so that I can set up a mock setup, but I also need inventory. So what I was thinking was what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on finishing this Willow Dragon this weekend. And I'm going to also focus on getting my kind of like, I messed that up, bare minimum together of what I need to have to create a mock setup. This way I can kind of say, okay, I'm making it up, if the deadline to apply is June, I have a month to put together. So that's made me a little nervous, just because, and I know that it's not a guarantee that I'll get into anything that I apply for. I just want to be as prepared as I can be. And so I think I'm just going to plan that out this weekend. And then my thought is that next week we officially start market prep, which is super exciting. I'm really itching to dive into the makes that I have on my list, especially the minis. The minis get me really excited because I feel like it'll be cool to just see how many I can crank out. I was calculating, that's the other thing. So I looked at the calendar, and if I start officially market prepping next week, that gives me 20 weeks until the first show, if I get into that show. Which, if I'm making 200 things, let's say, and some of them I already have, so it's not actually 200, but if I'm making 200 things, just to use a round number, then, I need to make 10 things a week. If it's the minis, I'm golden, but only 70 of those things are minis. So the more complex stuff is going to be where the question lies. I'm a little bit like, just nervous and hopeful, I guess. I know that the issues that I've had, like on Wednesday and stuff, it's fear kicking in, It's just one of those things, like, what will everyone think and all that stuff. And I know you can't let that bother you. So But yeah, those are kind of the thoughts that I'm having, and the concerns, because I just want to make sure that I'm prepared. I feel like every time I go to film myself crocheting, not like this necessarily, I mean this too, but like when I go to film a reel or something where I'm crocheting, my fingers all of a sudden forget what they're doing. But yeah, I think that's all the thoughts I have for now. I'm sure there's many more, but I've probably babbled on long enough. I don't know how long this video is going to be, so I'm just gonna chill here, crochet away. I've got a little under an hour before work, so we'll see how much of this I can get cranked out, and then I'll check back in with you after work when the weekend officially begins. My premiere order arrived, so I thought we would go through it really quickly. It is 5 o'clock, by the way. The weekend has begun with awesomeness. So I placed this order primarily because my mom asked me for a specific plushie that she wanted to have made. It's a character from Animal Crossing, I think, named Static. I'll put a picture of it here. She just sent me the picture of it. I'm going to be using a pattern by Crochet Me Zaddy that's for a bear, and I'm going to tweak it to hopefully make something that looks like this character. But I didn't have the colors that I needed for it, so I placed the order, and then obviously I need free shipping, so I filled in with other skeins that I wanted to try or use. So the first thing I got was this giant pack of black. It was in their like clearance thing for like $8, and it seems to be good. I mean, so then I got two in the color Toffee, one in Sunshine, and this is for part of the costume of that character. I got Eggplant, two skeins of Iris, and this is what I think the primary color of that guy would be. I got the darker one just in case. And then I got another one of this haze color, one of their new colors. I have one of those. Key Lime. This is another of the new colors, which I love. It's kind of like a darker color of my walls, and this is called Sundown. I got one of Chocolate, one of Harvest, one Ruby, one Candy Apple. This comes off a little more orange on camera, but it's actually a pretty good pinky toned red. And then I got two of the Glitz for in the color Cardinal Glitz. And I got those two because last year I made myself a Santa hat with that yarn, and I love it. So I think when I do the market that's going to be closer to Christmas time, I'm going to make a few Santa hats. So they'll be probably the only wearables that I'll have. I'm not sure yet, but yeah. So that's my little yarn haul for the week. And now that this yarn arrived, that changes the plan for the evening, because I was going to work on the Willow Dragon, but I am going to start working on this character because I don't know how it's going to come out. I've never done the pattern before. I'm modding it as I'm going. I can imagine there's going to be, some challenges with that. I tried to go through the pattern and mark up what I thought, what color would be where and stuff, but the pattern itself is very plain, and this guy has a lot going on. So I think I'm going to work on that because that has a deadline, and the Willow Dragon does not. The Willow Dragon can wait. So yeah, the plan for the evening is to start working on this guy, and I'll show you what he's looking like come tomorrow morning. Good morning! So last night I did get to crochet. I worked on the Static character. I looked him up also. I Googled him to make sure I was saying it right. So his name is Static, and he is from Animal Crossing. I don't play a lot of those. I don't play any of those, those video games. I just never, I don't know if it's because I stare at a screen all day or what, but I just can't get into them for some reason. So I worked on him. I got his body done. In hindsight, I wish I would have done slip stitches like I did here for these other two color change rows, but I'm not going to go back and redo it for the stripes on his jacket. This will be fine. I'm going to embroider the details on afterwards. I do need to kind of gut him and restuff him. I found a gap in the stuffing, so I'm going to do that this morning. And then I also got one of his arms done. So I'm going to work on his other arm this morning. And I think what I'm going to do with that is try to film a reel with the parts that I'm making, because I'm still struggling with the whole social media thing. I'm not I'm not enjoying it and I want to enjoy it, but I need to kind of figure out how I can get there with it. But I definitely need to make a few more. So I'm going to try to do that this morning. Hey, just popping on real quick because I mostly need to think out loud and it helps me to talk to you. I'm working on the head for Static. And in the pictures, his head is really giant. And it looks like that's kind of how the character is designed. And at this point, this is the part of the rounds where it's just going to start to ball out. So this is like his snout, and then this is the head. But this is as big as the head gets. But I think normal proportions for this body, it makes sense. But for this character, it doesn't. I'm trying to think of how I'm going to make this bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I've never written a pattern. I know how to do increases, but I'm a little nervous about how this is gonna unfold, because his head is, I'll put the picture back up again, but his head is really bulbous and I'm gonna need to use really big eyes. So I think what I'm gonna do, yeah, maybe I'll center it around the eyes. I just don't know if the snout's going to need to be bigger. So I might pull from the other end of this skein and just make a really big sphere the size of his head, and then decide if I want to, I could surface crochet, not surface crochet, but I mean, I could sew on a piece for his snout. Because my fear is that if I make the head bigger, this snout then just looks like a pointy nose or something. It's not proportionate to the size of the face. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go sphere and then come back. I'll show you when I'm done. I'll show you what I come up with. Just coming back on here to give you a quick update on the Static head. I started overthinking it like I always do and looking for patterns and doing all these things. And I'm like, what am I doing? I know how to make a sphere and I don't even want it to be a sphere. I want it to be kind of like a cylinder in a way, rounded cylinder. I don't know. Anyway, this is what I ended up with, as far as size. And I think that's a good size for the width of his head. So I'm just going to keep going from here. And then when I feel like it's tall enough, I'm going to fit my eyes, make sure I like it, and then get it stuffed and close it up. So I think I'm in a really good spot with this. It makes me happy. I completely lost track of where my first or last stitch of each row is, but to me at this point, it doesn't even matter because I'm just going to continue with the same number of stitches, which is 60, by the way, 60, to just get this thing increased up, and then I will start tapering in backwards, to do my decreases. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that. Pretty happy with this. Hoping to finish most of the parts today. I don't know if that's achievable or not. I don't know what I'm doing for the tail yet. That's a really weird shape. And all of his other accents will just kind of get embroidered on, I think. So yeah, we'll see. I'll check back in with you and let you know how it's going. Hey guys, just wanted to jump in real quick and give you an update on Static. So as you saw earlier, I had his body and his 2 arms. Actually, I think I only had 1 arm. I finished his 2 arms and I was working on the head. So I did end up finishing his head, and proportion wise, I think it's perfect because he's got a pretty giant head. Turn his eyes the right way. So that is done. I also did his ears. I also did some eyelids / eyebrows for him, and I did a tail. The tail was super tricky for me because I had nothing to go by. So I just kind of freehanded it. I've got to do the appliques on it with the little swirly lightning bolty things that he's got going on. But the general shape I'm pretty happy with. And I kind of, did some partial rows here so that when it goes sewed on, yeah, I have kind of a plan for that. So I think that's going to work out well, which I'm pretty happy with. What I need to do left, obviously, is assemble him and all of that embroidery detail, which is going to take a good while. So my plan is I'm going to do a little bit this evening. My hands are kind of killing me. And then tomorrow I'm going to finish him up. That's the goal, because I want to go into next week where I start Monday and it's nothing but market prepping. So that's the plan. I think I'm going to go ahead and end the vlog here. I'll put a picture of Static up so that you can at least see him and don't have to wait till next week's video. If you have made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I've been so excited to go in and see some comments here and there, and I'm just really getting amped up and hopeful for what this could be in the future. So if you are watching, thank you so much. If you haven't already subscribed, please do that. You can follow me over on Instagram. All the things would be appreciated, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.